Welcome, Wanderers. We haven't met before. I'm Steve.
I'm Laura.
All right, let's talk about some new changes that are occurring next week when you arrive in Europe, and that is the new entry and exit system that begins in Europe starting October 12th. Now, if you've been down to Mexico, I don't think this is all that big of a change, except for one thing. So what basically the change is this. You are now going to be doing some contactless entry when you go into Europe. If you go to any of the Schengen, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Schengen countries, now that is a zone of 29 European countries that have done away with internal border checks, and they allow free movement of people between their borders. So Europe, as you may or may not remember, has always been that place where when you cross from one border to another, which in Europe, depending upon you are, is really easy to do because they're really close together, and you would have to go through security every single country. Well, these Schengen countries, these zones, do away with that. However, they are now moving to a system of collecting facial recognition and fingerprints when you enter the country, but it's supposed to be faster. Now, you remember, we still get this when we get to Mexico, but no one asked for it. And we saw this when we went to France, is they give you that little piece of paper. So you go in, you get your passport stamped. That also stops folks. And you get
Upset people.
it will. It's upset me for years. And then you will get a little piece of paper that you were required to keep with you. And then when you brought it back, you gave it back as you went through security to get back on your plane. And then they filed it. And supposedly somebody went and looked for the big form that didn't have a little piece of the form that you didn't bring back to go with it.
Somebody's job.
I don't think anybody has actually done that in years, but it has still been a thing in a lot of places.
But we're all terrified to lose it.
Yes, even in Mexico, I still carry mine around, even though absolutely no one asked for its return when we leave. But you still, because you don't want to be. You're like, okay, but then if I lose it, that'll be the time. That'll be the time someone asks for it. So what they're going to now is a lot of very similar, I guess, to what we see in global entry and what we see in Mexico to an extent. Two different security systems. So the one on the right there with the gentleman, that is the new EES system, or at least what it's supposed to supposedly look like. And we see there that he's doing a facial recognition. We have a little screen on the top there where you would have laid your passport. And then it looks like he has his hands and a fingerprint scanner.
So is it face and fingerprint or either or?
It's both. It's face and fingerprints.
Okay. Now, all I see is Jeremy hands.
And as someone who has collected fingerprints, in my prior life, so we did ink rolls. I know all you newer guys out there are like, oh my God. But yeah, back in the day, we actually did ink rolls and we didn't do digital. So I'm going to guess the system's gotten a lot better. But yeah, there's a lot of things that can clog up the swirls in your fingerprint. Oils, grease. We would have
I'm just thinking germs.
Well, yeah, maybe they'll have a little thing there where you can wipe it off. Yeah. And we have kidding about that, but I think you're going to have a little thing there, because this is my point. Like, if you have naturally oily hands, or let's say you're someone who does physical labor, or you use a lot of lotions on your hand and you didn't get it all real rubbed in. If you were getting your fingers ink rolled, you would clean those with a Clorox wipe or something like that to clean all that out before you ink rolled it, because that's just going to gum up the swirls and they're not going to be distinguishable. So when you lay your hand in here, you're going to, that's glass. So the last person, glass holds fingerprints, right? So the last person, their remnants are in there. So I don't think you're going to have a cleaning thing, one, for the glass, but two, to clean your hands, because this is what the EU has already said, hey, we're making a change. This is going to be faster eventually, but initially look for it to be slower.
Yeah, I don't see it being faster.
Because a couple of things. Change is change, which means that all their people have to get used to this thing. How does this machine work? What do I do when it's not working? And I think what they're not going to say, we don't know, is what is the level of expectation around the system taking your fingerprints and saying, yep, I'm good with that. The computer or whatever the AI is saying, I'm good with that. Go ahead and send them on, right? Because if it's looking for distinguishable swirls and patterns and your fingers are all gummed up, it's not going to get it if they're not cleaned. Now, the one on the left, that's traditionally now what we're seeing in Cancun and Puerto Vallarta. And these are these lanes that you lay your passport on, and then the first door opens. And you go into that little holding area.
Get trapped.
And then it's read your passport. Now it's going to take your photo, compare that to, I guess, your passport, and then, of course, save your photo. And then the second gate opens, and then you're on your way. Now, traditionally, the one on the left in Mexico has been only for 18 and over, no families, right? Because that's another thing with this new How do you get little kids to keep their? Because you just can't squirm your hand, right?
Mm-mm.
We know from watching people in the one on the left when we're in Mexico, if you move around a little bit, it like yells at you. Like you have to stand
Right,
perfectly
right.
still. And that's why they don't let kids in those. And maybe there's some other checks with bringing kids into a country. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, how do you get your kids to go through the one on the right if they have to do fingerprints? Now, this is also very much like the machine we see with global entry when we come back. We used to layer a passport down.
Right.
And then it would
Now it's
read it.
just facial.
Now you just walk up to it, and you still have the same platform. But if you've used it before, I don't know how many times, we've used it many times, but if you've used it at least once, I guess, now it just looks at you facially and says, oh, okay, I know who you are. And off you go.
Well, maybe they'll
to
do
the
that
control
for
guy.
the kids that can't put their hand up.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not stated. And I'm sure that's part of what happens when you do something new, right? They have a certain idea of how it's going to work. And now they're going to put it out as of the 12th in the real world. And they're going to get some experience and go, okay. When this situation comes up, this is a problem.
Right.
And so now we got to do something else for this. All this is to alleviate you standing in line for someone that you speak to who, officially stamps your passport with that little stamp that we've all used to seeing, or we used to at least, so that you can get in and out quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that part. I love the quicker part. There was when we were last in Cancun, if you didn't want to use this line, there was another line you could go to if you wanted to stamp, right? The stamp line. And that had a little bit of a crowd to it.
It did.
People want
them.
the stamps. So you got to wonder and I even wonder if, will it be more than one page? Will it be a booklet anymore?
You have all those pages and just nothing on any of them. They're blank.
Right. What's the point of having all these pages as the world moves to this? And I think there's good reason for the world to move to
maybe
this.
they could be cheaper too.
Yeah, those two things don't normally go hand in hand, but we could hope. And I will caution you folks, if you're wanting a stamp, there are some Caribbean countries that have a place that you can go in a port and you can get a stamp, and it may cost a few bucks. It's not exactly an official stamp, but it is a official looking stamp that the government okays them doing because it's right there in the port. They know it. But here's the thing, based on, let's just talk about the US. If it ain't an official stamp and it's in your passport, it could invalidate your passport. So you come back in the customs and like, what is this stamp? Like I got that in, I don't know who does it, but we'll say Jamaica. Sorry, Jamaica, if you don't do it. I got that in Jamaica. That's not an official stamp. That shouldn't be in here. It causes you problems you don't need. I know that you want the stamp. I know you want to say, hey, I was here, look where I've been. But let me just say to you, it's not a thing anymore. Get over it.
Yeah.
And it's becoming less and less
Get
a
a
thing.
map, put a pin in.
Yeah, that's what we do. So one day I'll take a picture and I'll show you all. We got it as a Christmas present for Laura. It's a nice big canvas map of the world. And we put pins in all the places we've been, and little gold-headed pins. And so you can have a visual representation of where you've been. I think that's the thing. That's hard to carry around and show friends and family.
Yeah. Or who carries their passport to show off?
Yeah, I don't know who does that anymore. I mean, sure, it was a thing once upon a time because, when you do up your passport, you get the old passport back, right? And there was a reason that people wanted the old passport back, right? They wanted to show all the places. Yeah. I mean, look at all these places. But now you just get it back as a bunch of empty pages. So what's the point? So I think this is going to be a good thing. I don't really think it's going to be that big of a problem. If you're going anywhere between October 12th and the end of the year, prepare for it. Give yourself a little extra time because I think you're going to see delays. Any change causes delays. In the end, I think it will get faster. By the time we go next year, they'll have it down. It won't be a problem. Okay, the other thing that's starting next year, but this is late next year, this will start even after we come back, it's the ETIAS tax. This is a European tax that's much like the ESTA US tax. All these taxes have little acronym names. Basically, this is a visa fee, folks. It's going to become mandatory in the EU whenever you're traveling over there. It's going to be about €7, and it's going to be good for 3 years. This reminds me a lot of the taxes we saw right after COVID, where you had to fill out paperwork before you went. You had to establish, obviously I don't have COVID, but what they did do that's going to be similar back then is they collected a fee. And this is going to be the same deal. They're going to collect this €7. You're going to want to do this a couple of weeks before you go, even longer. Remember, it's good for 3 years, so you don't have to do it all the time. This isn't a big change, but it is something to be aware of because you don't want to wind up over there at wherever you're going next year and not have this done because that's just going to get you moved from the line that hopefully went quick over to the line that's moving a little bit slower, full of people who did not do the required paperwork. We've seen that a couple of times in Puerto Vallarta for people doing that entry paperwork that you really don't have to do anymore, but their airline forgot to tell them. And remember, we saw the couple, she's writing on his back, filling out the form on his back as a hard surface so that they could fill it out. We're like, you don't have to do that. But they'd had a few drinks on the way down and they weren't really listening. They had already started their vacation early. So they filled it out. They filled it out. But it was what was required the last time where they were there, and they weren't familiar with the new things that had been kind of done away with, at least. And that's the thing, right? It had been done away with in Puerto Vallarta. It had been done away with in Cancun, but it had not been done away with in all of Mexico. So airports that were updated were not required to do the form anymore. So they weren't familiar. Folks, this is another reason to have a travel advisor to keep you aware of what is required and what is new in your destination, right? Because once again, once you start your trip, nobody wants the hassle of a border issue, and forbid that the issue should be so large that you get turned around and sent back. Right. Most people are not aware, you should not be traveling with a passport that expires within 6 months. Countries don't love that. And a lot of them, they all have it as a requirement. And some of them will turn you around if somehow you made it that far at the border and say, nope, your passport too close to expiration, you're heading back. And that is not the way you want us to have any trip go. So your travel advisor can make you aware of everything you need and make sure and keep up with you.
Because you shouldn't have to.
You shouldn't have to. And it's a lot to remember.
It's just too much for you to know all the little details.
And if you're a frequent traveler, I get it. You're using a travel advisor simply because you understand the amount of work and you want to do away with it, although you're probably giving that travel advisor a lot of input about what you want, which is fine. We love that. If you are an occasional traveler, I'm sorry, folks, it's more than just going on some website and signing up for a trip and getting your tickets and going out and having a good time. It's much too complicated a world. Travel has a lot of things to it. Too many things can happen, from your documentation not being correct to transfers to just all sorts of things. So this is yet something else that could slip under a lot of people's radar.
And you've spent too much money to have it just all go wrong.
And even if you have trip insurance, which you should have, because that's going to take care of the things that you don't expect. And the things that you don't expect because you weren't aware, the trip insurance is going to cover that. Honestly, those are things you could have controlled and you didn't. Yeah, you're going to get your money back, but you're going to be really disappointed. You're going to have a lot of time invested. You got nothing for it. You're going to get back the raw dollar that you spent. You're not going to get back all the time invested, all the hopes and all the expectations that you had. Those are going to go unfulfilled and unpaid for. So get somebody to help you out. Get some trip insurance to cover you, even if you don't think you need it, because you never know what's going to happen. But on top of that, stick with us and come back from time to time, and we'll help you keep up to date on these things that changes. Be aware that these things are occurring. Let us know in the comments if you have any experiences at the border that you wish you'd have known about in advance and how that went for you. Let us know what that was like. We'd love to hear about it. Until next time, this has been Book, Pack, and Go. Stay wonder-worthy.
Thanks for spending a little time with us today. If you enjoyed this and want more insider tips, real travel stories, and deals that make your bucket list closer than you think, be sure to scan the QR code, hit subscribe, or follow. Why? Because every week we bring you ideas that save you money, inspire your next adventure, and show you how to travel smarter without the stress. Don't just dream about travel. Make it happen with us. Follow now so you never miss your next chance to wander worthy.